All right, we are live on YouTube. And the recording is now in progress as well. So we are live on YouTube and we are recording.
Matt, I see you have the tie on. I was thinking about when we eventually return, I'm going to have to put a tie on it. I haven't had one for a long, long time.
Can't get too far away from it.
No, you can't. How's everyone else tonight?
I'm good. I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of this box that's in front of my Zoom. It says this meeting is being recorded.
I
Oh,
think there might be a continue button you just click, Paula.
Yeah, just
Okay. I was afraid to click anything because Lord knows where I would end up, you know? Cyberspace. Thank you. That was it.
Andrew, you're getting as bad as Matt sending text and emails after midnight.
You have certainly are under no obligation to return them at that time, or even read them at that time.
Yeah, you'd have been, although there's times where I've gotten replies, I send them out sometimes pretty early, and I've gotten replies mostly from Matt, but
He sends you.
Sure won't get them from me that early.
At 4
No.
a.m. You're both upset. Yeah. Okay.
Does everyone have the link for the closed session?
I probably should check.
yes, from Mr. Sell on June 4th.
You send it out as a calendar invite.
Mhm.
Let me look, because you should know me by now that I won't.
So that's on the calendar, huh, Mark?
That's where I found it.
All right.
Yes.
You accepted it today, Vince, so it should be on your calendar.
Take nothing for granted, Ed. You know that.
And Paul, if you don't have a
Usually
calendar.
the calendar invite dumps itself into the garbage can is the issue, though.
Mhm.
So you go
Andrew,
directly to
your volume is a little low, Andrew.
I'm not sure how to
That's
adjust that
better.
on my end.
You took care of it. Whatever happened, happened. You're good.
I didn't
Good.
touch it.
Just take credit
Okay.
for it. It's okay.
Thank
You're
you.
good. You're good. All right. I am ready whenever you are, Your Honor.
Yeah, we have 6 o'clock. I know that Councilwoman Germaini will not be joining us this evening. And I'll give Councilwoman Vining a minute here, just, connection wise and stuff that we've had. So,
Well, that gives me time to ask a question. Ed, there it is, invitation, I found it.
that's it.
Okay, thank you. These little laptops these tablets are nice, but they tend to pop things up and cover up what you're trying to read.
Hmm.
Especially in the email. So it slows you down.
So Mayor, Council, before we get started,
Sure.
obviously, we're going to go into a closed session for the quarterly litigation update. Matt, are you going to read the cases that they have to acknowledge going into the closed session?
I sent a proposed motion
Okay.
to all the council members,
All
so
right.
they should have that.
All right, good.
Well, it's a little past 6:02, so I have not heard from Councilwoman Vining, so and we'll just watch for her in case she zooms in here, clerk, and then we'll move forward. So at this time, call this Monroe City Council special meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
Present in Williamsburg, Virginia.
Whitman,
Muted.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Present in Monroe, Michigan.
Echo Angeli,
Present, Monroe, Michigan.
Vining, let's see her, Germaine,
Please excused.
Lamore,
Present City of Monroe.
Mayor Clark,
Present in the city of Monroe.
and Clerk Treasurer Lavoy is present in the city of Monroe.
Your
Okay, we
Honor,
have- Go ahead, Councilman.
I'll make a motion that we go into executive closed session regarding pending litigation involving the following parties: Tina Marie Carroll, Leslie Pompey, Mix Harms Consolidated with other appellants cases with the same allegations, and Lazy Boy Incorporated.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion by Councilman Akalangi, supported by Councilman Lamore, to go into the closed executive session for the quarterly legal update, but also the items mentioned. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
Yes.
Whitman,
Yes.
Echo Angeli,
Yes.
Vining, Germaine, Lamore, I'm sorry, she's excused, Lamore,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. So we'll see you over to the other Zoom through the Mr. Cell Center. See you soon.
Paula, that's going to be on your, you should have a calendar update for that, for the closed session.
The
Oh,
one
Paula
that.
Smith,
it
I'm
said-
sorry, Assessor Paula Smith.
Oh,
I'm
Did I
sorry,
send you it?
what did you say, Vince?
I said you should have your, the closed session's going to be on your calendar. Ed sent that out this afternoon.
Did Ed send you one, Paula?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where we're headed. Just close out of this one and go into that one now.
Okay.
Are we in the special meeting now, Michelle?
In closed session,
Closed session.
yes.
Okay. Can you send me the email?
Let me see if I still have it from Ed, okay?
Okay, I tried to get in there.
Oh, it'll take him,
Maybe I should have just waited.
you should wait. It'll take him a minute to let you in.
Okay, I'll go back.
All
Thank
right,
you.
you're welcome.
Clerk LaVoy, I see as we're coming back. Okay, I saw that you brought forward. Okay.
Bringing forward John Icoangeli.
Yep, he's in the attendee area comes.
Yep, he should be coming in now.
Mhm. Okay, we're back and need a motion to go back in session.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion. We go back into open session.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Klein, supported by Councilman Lamore, to back into open session. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
Yes.
Whitman,
Yes.
Icoangeli,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Lamore,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. And motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilman Felder to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
Yes.
Whitman,
Yes.
Icoangeli,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Lamore,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes, so we're adjourned for our special meeting, and we'll move right forward with our work session. Clerk, I'll make sure that we're ready for that.
I am ready now, sir.
Okay, at this time, I'll call the city council work session meeting to order. And Clerk, if you could please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
Present in Williamsburg, Virginia.
Whitman,
Present in Monroe, Michigan.
Icoangeli,
Present, Monroe, Michigan.
Vining,
Present, Monroe, Michigan.
Germany,
She's excused.
Lamore,
Present, City of Monroe.
and Mayor Clark.
Present in the city of Monroe.
And Clerk Treasurer Lavoy, I'm present in the city of Monroe.
Very good. Mr. Pastu, I see you have a few items for discussion on the agenda, and I'll just go right to you.
Thank you, Your Honor. The first item is review of a proposed border review charter amendment as contained in the fact sheet. In section 31 of the charter deals with the term of office, and what we're proposing is to consideration of an amendment related to that through the ordinance. We have a rotation of members, which is very uncommon, but now that the state tax commission is requiring training for all of the board review members, we think it may be time to look at considering a change in the ordinance related to that. And then the second part is our charter is very specific regarding the number of meetings for the March border review. Again, very unusual with the number and the frequency. And again, considering that we follow the statutory and regulatory requirements related to the March border review meetings. And so I'll have Matt, city attorney, go through proposed language for council to consider. Again, no action tonight, but to get your feedback and ultimately look at taking it either at the next meeting or the first meeting in July.
Okay, Mr. Buds.
Good evening, Your Honor and Council. The changes would really be threefold, essentially. The first would be to Charter Section 47, which provides that the city has 4 members of the Board of Review, of whom one is the city attorney, and that the remaining 3 are for a term of 1 year. We would need to make a modification there. And my recommendation is that we indicate that other than the role of the city attorney, which by charter earlier provides for 2-year terms, as any modification there was not approved by the electors the last time around. We would then be looking at a 3-year term for all the other 3 Board of Review members. And my recommendation would be that they be staggered. So the charter provision would say that they have 3-year terms, but then if the charter amendment were passed beginning in 2022, there would be an appointment of 3 individuals, 1 for 3 years, 1 for 2 years, and 1 for 1 year, so that we then have on a rotating basis that it's only 1 seat that's up each year to keep some continuity there and then get into that 3-year plan. That would also require a change, as City Manager Pastou indicated, to Charter Section 139. That's the section that provides that no one can be appointed on the Board of Review for any 2 years in succession. Obviously, if we think it's a good idea to go to 3-year terms, we would need to eliminate that section. A brief aside comment here is that I have begun the dialogue with the Attorney General's office for the state regarding charter amendments, because generally speaking, a charter question has to be limited to 1 subject matter. It's my opinion, and I'm asking for their confirmation as we submit this to City Council and then up to the state if the council were to be in support, that those 2 items necessarily, in my mind, go together. You can't have a prohibition against serving more than 2 years in succession and then have another provision that says there are 3-year terms. So in my opinion, it seems that that could be submitted as 1 question to the electorate for both of those 2 charter amendments. I'm awaiting the Attorney General's position on that, but I will draft the language accordingly for council's review at an upcoming meeting. There will also need to be a change, as City Manager Pastou indicated, or a recommended change to Charter Section C-140, which sets the time and place of meetings. And it would be my recommendation that we just in that section adopt and make reference to state law, which otherwise provides, in the absence of any charter provisions, how the Board of Review meetings would be scheduled, which would give us a more standardized approach to other communities across the state, rather than what I'll call a somewhat more esoteric charter provision that we have currently. And those would be the changes that would be proposed, and we would provide updated language via a resolution at a future council meeting.
Matt, I have a question. Maybe you said it, I might have missed it. I want to talk about changing front to the members in the 3-year term. The 3 members. There's a section that talks about representation of precincts and alternating years, 1, 3, and 5, and then 2, 4, and 6. But how would we look at that, or is that not necessarily written in this location?
I don't believe that's written in this location, but I'll give that a review. And if we need additional language in that regard, we'll make sure that we take care of that as well.
Thank you. I mean, when we think of this, we obviously want representation across precincts across the city, and making sure that when those come forward, there's opportunities and alternatives. But just if we could review that, I'd appreciate it. Thanks. Other questions?
Your Honor, that may be through the ordinance as well.
Okay, yeah. Just so we pick it up somewhere else that we don't miss it. That's all.
Any concerns, issues on the part of council?
Nope.
Oh, Andrew.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other at this time proposed ordinances, proposed charter amendments for the November election?
City administration is not proposing any additional beyond this.
Oh, we're not.
Your Honor, why aren't we putting back on the agenda or on the ballot the proposals that failed last time, which were, I was shocked that they didn't get approved.
You're talking about the submission of candidates and petitions and timeframes and age and
Yes.
I would be more amenable towards changing other things in the charter that need changing. I think if the public's already voted on some of these items, I'm happy to let those ones lie a bit longer. I think there's other things that we need to work on in there.
Well, I think it was a matter of education. Personally, we saw that with the fire department. The more you educate the public, the better informed they are.
So I think that, I know I could go back. I think we all probably have lists of things that we've thought about it within the charter and things that could be updated and brought into this, I'll say, use of time frame in management and running the city. That obviously we have one in front of us now for discussion. Let me ask this before I get to my next part: is do we start looking at those other ones as well as Andrew says? But what's the time frame again? Because either the clerk or Matt, that submissions need to be reviewed and approved to make the. I think we're a little bit ahead of where we might have been in the past, but I don't recall. I know I apologize. We should have probably thought about that ahead of time. So, but I think if we don't get it now, we obviously can look through it through the week here and get it back as to from the manager, maybe in his weekly update. And then also the opportunity to provide council opportunity to have some of what they may want to be reviewed.
Your Honor, I'm not recalling a set hard and fast deadline. It's a matter of getting it in ASAP, I'll say, so that the Attorney General's office and the Governor's office have the ability to conduct their reviews. Typically speaking, we have attempted to have that by the end of June, so that if there were comments or things that came back, we could address those in July, which would then give plenty of time for everything to appear on the ballot appropriately.
They'll begin to formulate the ballot in August, really, beginning of September at the very latest, because we're required to mail them out, or 6 weeks before the election. So really, the first meeting in July, second meeting in July could work, but the first meeting in July would be better.
Okay, so I think we have a timeline. I think we have language from the one that didn't, and if that's something council wants to push forward again, and it gives, as Andrew said, time for some other items to bring forward to have that discussion as well.
Your Honor, I'm aware of two major charter changes that we went through, complete revisions of the charter over the last 30 years, and at both times the community voted it down. Right. Because when you do it as a complete charter change, if somebody has one issue with the charter, they vote no. So I think it's better practice for the city council at every opportunity we have to submit minor amendments to the charter in order to bring it into the 21st century.
Yeah, I think
I'm happy to go about it that way. If it's prudent to bring revisions or to have a discussion about the revisions that council would like to make and would like to propose to be put on the ballot in November, and bring those at next meeting in June, so that we could talk about moving forward in the process in July, I'm happy to do that. And
I mean, I don't have a problem appointing somebody on council to be the city dog catcher, and I don't have a problem being the commissioner in charge of the DPW. But those things just don't happen anymore.
Right.
And
I think there may be.
We don't need a city constable. So I mean, those are provisions that are antiquated back in the 1920s that we got to get rid of.
So I think Mr. Pastu probably has, I'll say, a leftover list from our past discussion. And I guess we have at our next session to be able to review what those might be. We have one that was not successful, and I think communication was an issue there. But at the same time, I'm not opposed if there's others that council wants to forward to the administration and then have a position why that is and why it's maybe what the priority is. And I think gives us that opportunity to discuss it. I'm always willing to discuss. But I think I agree with John. I think the one that didn't pass, I think, is fundamental. And quite honestly, I think if we have somebody that contests that through a petition for council, then it's going to go to the courts, and I think they're going to be successful. But I think we have to share that information appropriately to make it open as people want to vie for positions.
I mean, Your Honor, our charter was adopted when we still had blacksmiths. We still had people would go to umbrella repair stores, and you went to get a hat store. I mean, our charter is like antiquated compared to what modern government is all about.
I don't think you'll get dispute on that here in the council of 1913, and we all recognize that things that the time passes by, the impracticality of having it there, and how do we get this the best we can and make things that are it's just easy but understandable, that it's not necessary to be there, and it really clogs things up. And so I think unless there's other thoughts, I think Vince is listening here, but what the list was before and what there might be that's submitted for, so we can put those as a discussion to here at our next meeting to finalize what might be there and what the language, what is the objective would be, and of course, obviously, is it going to be achieved as well?
Like it.
You know, if I may, I'll bring back, the language from last November, the proposals that were defeated. But two of them out there, I think, is ultimately, Jeff Green and I've talked about the charter requirement for adopting it, the second meeting in February or March. I can't remember. I think it's February, the capital improvements program. And, clearly it doesn't fall in line with, I'd much rather have that done probably in late summer so you can start construction drawings if you need to the following year. Mm-hmm. And then the other part of it is, and we talked about it, is, the consideration of the election commission. Again, a lot of communities have, either the mayor will have the mayor, clerk, and usually city attorney, but there's nothing that prohibits other council members from being appointed to that. It's unusual to have the full city council serve in that capacity, but again, that's something, for discussion. But I'll bring back, those items for consideration at the next work session.
Thank you. And I'll include Clerk Treasurer Lavoy as well. If there's some thoughts that she has. I know she's brought those items to us in the past as well. And when we meet and how we report out, and it seems redundant, but on the same point, we know why it's there, but now how do we make it so it's functional for why it's there for today? And I think there's options. So, okay. No other comments on this one? See none. Vince?
The next item is regarding our discussion that we previously had regarding the regular meeting agenda format. I won't go into the work session and special meeting format, but for this item, but it's a function, I think, of our prior discussion, but also the fact that the state is looking to relax a lot of the COVID-19 restriction. I think there's a general sense that we'd like to get back to resuming our meetings in public again. And so we've had a recent discussion with the mayor, myself, city attorney, clerk treasurer, Mr. Cochran, and I. We all just kind of reviewed what was discussed earlier this year and came back with some proposed changes to the agenda. And if I may, I'll just walk through it. Is that we're still able to do the remote technology meetings, Zoom and telephone, and comply with the Open Meetings Act because of the mayor's state of emergency declaration. When that is rescinded, then obviously we'll be back in a regular meeting based on the current Open Meetings Act. So part of it is just the structure of it with the approval of the agenda, moving that to the front end of it. And there's a couple of reasons for considering that. It would provide an opportunity for council to add an action item that may have been discussed in a closed session prior to the regular meeting. I know that in the past that there's been, when we were in the council chambers, we would go into closed session at the end of the meeting. And at that point, usually everybody's departed when council has to take action. And I think all agreed that we prefer to come out of closed session probably prior to that in a special meeting, and then add that on there because there are items of significance that we think need to be presented while the audience is present, as well as being shown live on Impact. The other item is that by doing this on the front end, if there's an item on the consent agenda that council wishes to put on the floor for council action, that would be a good time to do that. And that also, from our end of it, and I say our as a city, we're very very liberal in allowing residents to ask for an item to be moved from consent to city council action. But what it does at the end of the day gives you a much cleaner action, which is essentially to approve the consent agenda, to record and file and take the actions recommended in there without asking for something to be moved to a later point in the agenda. That action will have already taken place. So item 1 and 2 kind of go together with the consent agenda, is that you would have a much cleaner action motion, if you will, for approval of the consent agenda. Let me run through a little bit more. We proposed the structure of a presentation, communications, public hearing. This segment of the agenda, would include, what we would normally have, any kind of public presentations that were not included in the work session, communication items, as well as public hearing. Again, there's a desire on our part to maintain the flow of the public hearings to city council action. So, by having it structured in this sequence, you go from public hearing into council action, whether it's an ordinance, approval of an incentive, or any kind of action that does require a public hearing and that may occur. Now, as I listed in there in this fact sheet, there are a couple aspects of it. We discussed earlier this year, the two different aspects of public comment and concern, that why should someone sit through an entire meeting if they just have an announcement? And I think in some ways, we discussed whether to include this public announcements 1 minute, whether individuals from the Sawyer House, sometimes the fire department has an announcement for an event they're involved with, that rather than go through the whole meeting, that would be an opportunity, but very limited for more of an announcement related item. The second aspect, and this is, I think certainly for, probably they're all for discussion, but the clerk reading correspondence into the record. The discussion that we had is that the correspondence would need to be submitted to the clerk's office by the close of business on the preceding Tuesday, to be placed on the communications segment of the agenda. As you know, it's difficult to read letters that are lengthy and certainly exceeding 3 minutes. And this way, the communication is in the official minutes of the meeting if we treat it in that manner. And then the rest of it would be just treating the current format the way it has been in the past. Returning to in-person meetings, public comment would be similar before COVID-19 remote technology was authorized by the Open Meetings Act. Attendant would have to be physically in attendance and allowed the 3 minutes that they have to comment at the end of the meeting. And again, I made my own personal comment, is that the city of Monroe has historically been very open in allowing public comment throughout the course of the agenda, far more than what I've experienced with other municipalities. So laying it out there, I think that was where we left it. Certainly open to any expansion of that by the participants, and certainly any questions council may have.
Thanks, Vince. I'll see if there's some questions. I have a couple of thoughts. Andrew, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Moving the closed sessions to the beginning of the meeting instead of the end of the meeting, it certainly, I understand the concern about, leaving the room, doing all the business, coming back, and then everyone, the room is empty by the time we come back out. I'm wondering to what extent it cuts into the work session, if at all. Because I mean, it's not an infrequent occurrence where we will have a work session and not be able to get through every item on it before our time has expired, and just everything keeps getting pushed off to the next one and the next one. I think that the conversations that we have there are quite important, and often, a lot of the discussion and the philosophy and the thinking takes place in the work session, and the council meeting serves just to be more procedural. So that's certainly a concern of mine, is limiting the time of the work sessions. And I'm sort of wondering to what extent that would be an issue or not.
If I may, Your Honor, respond to that.
Sure.
Excellent consideration, concern. Part of my responsibility, I think, as the manager is when trying to structure the agenda. If I know there's an item that probably ultimately may come out and require council action coming out of a closed session, that I would try and structure the work session to allow for adequate discussion so that, and then there's times where, we can just do an update at the end of the meeting. Sometimes collective bargaining can be done at that point, certainly when we're back into meeting in the council chambers and having the adjoining conference room. So part of it is going to be the manager, certainly looking to manage that flow and continuity for the council.
Your Honor.
John?
What we talking about council policy is, my preference would be that anytime we have to go into closed session, we do it as part of the workshop meeting, just like we did today. And not do the closed meetings, the closed sessions during the regular council meeting. It gives the council a little bit more time to deliberate, because we start at 6, theoretically, we have until at least 7:15 if it's a hot issue.
Mm-hmm. And if I may, Your Honor, just in response, sure. I'm trying to remember the item, but it's somewhere within the last couple of months where what I thought was literally going to be maybe a 10 or 15 minute discussion in closed session, it consumed the entire work session, and we just ended up moving the items that we had when we came out from the work session to another meeting. And so, the administration can work around that. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So, but I do think if we know there's something that's going to probably require council action that evening, we will try and schedule it preceding the regular meeting.
Good.
Other thoughts?
I like the idea of having the community announcements up front, and then we have the public comment at the end.
Yeah, I think it's what we've kind of talked about here over a time frame, is because the person making an announcement of an activity, an event, a gathering at the park, really just wants to make the announcement of the date, time, purpose, and really making a welcoming, I'll say, invite to attendees. And I think that's what we're looking at in that section. One item on the consent agenda, which I think is structurally just, it makes it cleaner as I think it through, is we'd pull something off the consent agenda and it's at the meeting and it's really placed nowhere. It's just, we go back to it and address it, and it's in the minutes and it's well recorded with the clerk treasurer, but it would be removing it from the consent agenda and placing it under council action. I think it really would flow into be able to later find something. I like that aspect of the moving the consent agenda up there for those things. And right before that, has been said, the approval, we have all those steps for the council. And as we still do, if a resident has an idea needed to pull an item and wanted clarification, that can be moved in at the same time. So that's one part I thought was better to be accounted for later, I guess is the best way to say it. Other thoughts? Okay, Vince, I don't see any other thoughts on that.
Just make sure you're okay with the communications that we talked about in the format. If some request something to be read into the record, you've got to submit it. And the preceding Tuesday is the due date when departments are supposed to submit their fact sheets for review by city administration. So
I think it's a good point to bring up again. There's by no means it's not making opportunities and the availability of the information and the input by the community, but it's really structuring it to where it can be found and is part of the record and is open to review. And I'll let Clerk Lavoie, maybe if she wishes to kind of review that and how that might process, so it gives residents the knowledge.
I would second what the mayor, how he described it. So what would happen is that, for instance, tonight I have over 20 letters to read. So what this would do is all of these would be, if these had been received according to the new structure, they would be received by me, they would be put into an item, so they would essentially become a packet included in the agenda that would be easily accessible for council, but easily and equally accessible to residents of the city online, because they'd be part of our online agenda. They could also always call us and we could email them the packet. So right now, when these letters are read, they do not become part of that permanent record that we have online as part of our minute track system. And so therefore, they're certainly never lost because they're on file in the clerk's office, but they're not easily accessible to the public. So I think this is a much neater package for the public in terms of access. And I truly believe it increases transparency. And I hope others will view it that way.
Clerk and Art, John, go ahead.
Your Honor, thanks. And some of the communities that I work with under communications, they just list from A to Z or whatever, the communications, the letter, the person's name, and what the communication was about. And they put it under one agenda item, and they don't read them all. They're part of the packet, and they're accepted as part of the public record, but the clerk does not go through and read each one of the communications individually.
So Councilman, that's you did a better job of explaining it. That ultimately is the intent of this action, is to put it in as a council item.
Yeah.
I mean, as a communication item, and then like other communication items that aren't read, you would accept that, and then like I said, it would just be then part of it, and everybody can access it. It would have everyone's names, etc. on it. So
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm fine with that. Some communities put it under their consent agenda, and if a resident wants to pull it, they pull it. But, you know, as a councilman, I read all the communications that you send, letters from residents, but there's no sense in having to reread them again after we've read them. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, John, that's kind of was my follow-up as well. There's other communities that do just as you say, and I think there's in clerk and in our discussions as we deliberate over this and have some conversation, reference not only local communities but also even state, is that there's X amount of letters that are received, and that's how it's reported. And it is available. Yeah. Other thoughts?
Well, Your Honor, I think the point that we need to make to the public, it's not that the letter was read publicly, but it's about that it's incorporated as part of the public record.
Correct.
That's the important part about it.
Yep.
And truthfully, historically, that's what is done. If you go to the minute books from beginning in the 1800s up through the recent times, not this most recent time, because obviously, as I said, they don't get added to our online packet. But if you go to a book from the 1920s, there are letters in there, copied in there, and they're part of the permanent record that 100 years later, can be accessed and read. And that's what this will allow. These will become part of the permanent record now, this action, and they will be there 100 years from now as well.
All right. Other thoughts? Okay, so Mr. Pastu, something that administration can bring back for consideration as we move forward and get back, into our in-person meetings.
Your Honor, if I may, I think I'll just put together a resolution for the next meeting and set that its effective will be upon return to city council meeting in council chambers again. So something to that effect.
Thank you. And I know that it's not on this for our work session, but in some of my comments during the meeting, I'm going to bring some information forward for council as we move forward internally in the timing that we're having discussion with the administration, but also to the in-person meeting discussion. All right. Vince?
Thank you, Your Honor. Next item, I'm going to have Mr. Cochran talk a little bit about the River Raisin Heritage Corridor East Master Plan update. Funding is contained in the fiscal year 21-22 budget that begins here July 1st, and have Mark walk through the rationale for moving forward with the project.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and City Council. Mark Cochran, Assistant to the City Manager and Economic Development Director. The Heritage Corridor Master Plan was first created and adopted about 11 years ago, back in 2010, which was shortly after the National Park Service began their operations in Monroe, and consequently, it has not been updated since. In contrast, as you know, the city's master plan for the entire city is required to be reviewed and updated at least every 5 years. So we're a bit out of practice in regards to updating a very significant master plan that we have for a very large swath of the city of Monroe, not just for the battlefield, but a community development master plan as well. So as the Heritage Corridor Advisory Commission has met over the past couple years and as work has completed or been done by the National Park Service and other volunteers, we've learned a whole lot more now that we did not know back in 2010. Many primary documents have been obtained from all over the country in different records, going from the Library of Congress to the National Archives and other locations across the country that give us a better and a more complete picture about what the River Raisin settlement, some refer to as Frenchtown, existed in 1813. For example, if you look at the Heritage Corridor Master Plan, it shows a plan to redevelop or recreate probably at least no short of 20 different French ribbon farms along the River Raisin. Given what we know now and the information that we've gotten from these various sources, we know there was probably about a quarter to a third of that amount. And we also know more about the size of those claims and the buildings and the location of all of them as we endeavor to recreate that. Also, in the work of the National Park Service, strong bonds have been cultivated and maintained with the various tribal nations and the Native American nations that were present and fought in the wars of 1812 and the battles of the River Raisin, that tells more about their perspective in the battles of the River Raisin and the significance of the surrounding lands, which really challenges us to consider how their perspective is told. And it wasn't considered as much, I would say, in 2010 when we didn't have those strong bonds and relationships and a better idea of their perspective. Some other development that's occurred since the development of the peace or the Heritage Corridor Plan was the construction of an International Peace Garden behind the Monroe County Historical Society offices. As you know, one of the activity areas calls for an International Peace Garden with the Heritage Corridor. And so taking a look at making sure that we're not duplicating efforts that other organizations are endeavoring in possibly other parts of the community. But other questions that we've had to look at over the past couple of years with the Heritage Corridor Advisory Commission has been things like the amphitheater that's planned in Hellenberg Park. Looking back now and considering that for construction, is that really the best ideal location for an amphitheater if we're going to have one right next to railroad tracks and in between the railroad tracks and I-75 for noise purposes? Pedestrian circulation is another thing that needs to be looked at since we have a better geographic understanding and pedestrian underpasses may not likely be feasible due to the proximity of bedrock to grade. Other questions we've grappled with is a chapel appropriate on municipally owned lands where bloodshed actually occurred with the battles? Since the education center has been developed or moved and development continues with that center, what's the ideal use for the adjacent land? Is it what's called for in the master plan that includes the chapel? And the other item that we've looked at is Noble Avenue. Does it really need to be extended over North Dixie Highway and across National Park Service property, or can other more cost-efficient traffic circulation patterns be studied as we are beginning to chase different infrastructure program dollars to implement different components of the plan? So those are just some of the questions we've looked at over the past couple of years that are contained in the study, but really what's driven the conversation to make the updates is last year, the River Raisin National Battlefield received a congressional appropriation for land acquisition that includes securing property interests through easements for things like archaeological resource protection, enhanced visitor access, and educational experiences. And so when we're considering that, it may not be the National Park Service owning property, but having some interest in the property. And the benefits of the city would be the greater ability to tap into federal and National Park Service resources to improve the corridor and chase things like project dollars at the federal level. But the National Park Service has to have some legal interest in the property. And so when the appropriation was given, the Heritage Corridor Advisory Commission established a land management committee to study and recommend parcel by parcel in the Heritage Corridor what long-term land ownership of each parcel in the corridor should look like. But it's become increasingly difficult to make those decisions and those recommendations without knowing what is the appropriate final use for the property. So if we're not going to have an amphitheater at Hellenberg Park, for example, what is the use going to be? And that's really going to drive what sort of land ownership or interest would be driven for that site. And so we really need to have a greater understanding of what the alternative use of some of the activity areas can and should be now that we know a whole lot more than what we knew when the plan was created. So as Vince mentioned, we did, with the recommendation of the Heritage Corridor Advisory Commission, submit a request for funding in the upcoming budget to update the master plan. And so we wanted to talk a little bit more tonight about the need for it. Again, it's been 11 years. And so what we would like to do is to move the project forward. I think the commission meets again in July. And so we'd like to kick off the project, and likely what would happen is the Heritage Corridor Advisory Commission would create a new task force or committee to work on the project with participation from other stakeholders as well. I can imagine probably the Planning Commission and some of the other organizations who have been very involved in implementing the Heritage Corridor plan to date and all the progress that we've had. So wanted to bring this forward for discussion tonight, talk a little bit more about the reason behind, and certainly, Mayor, you serve on the advisory commission. If you've got any gaps that you'd like to fill in my presentation, by all means, but that's the conversation we were looking for tonight.
Thanks, Mark. I made some comments, so I'm going to go to the council, see if there's any inquiries or thoughts. Councilwoman Vining, Kelly.
Yes, thank you. Mark, the one thought I was having, which I think an amphitheater would be a great idea. I hadn't thought about the noise though, but the flooding can get pretty bad there. Now, I haven't really been around since we put the new pumps in, so that might have been mitigated with those pumps over there. But I know sometimes that flooding can come all the way up to First Street. So that has to be a question. And then how much do you think that the Orchard East sub area plan will tie into this, or vice versa?
I think those are two great points. The water levels are a good example of what the conditions that didn't exist in 2010. We know that Lake Erie levels have risen over the past few years that have caused more significant flooding in that area of town. And so knowing that, what are appropriate uses to mitigate some damage that may come of that. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a great point to consider. I think the Orchard East sub-area plan is going to play a very integral role. We talked about the Greenway Trail that runs basically from River Raisin and Hellenberg down to Plum Creek. And the idea of that is to connect areas like the Orchard East neighborhood into the development and try and bring those amenities to the neighborhood as well. And so when we talk about that Greenway Trail, I know I was just looking at a grant today, and one of the requirements of the grant is they want to know what sort of public participation would be involved in creating that. And certainly with the Orchard East neighborhood sub-area plan, we're looking to have a public engagement strategy. And so as we look to possibly revise the vision for the Greenway Trail component or other areas surrounding the Orchard East, I think the team that's going to work on the Orchard East sub-area plan could also have very valuable input at the same time into updating the Heritage Corridor plan.
Thanks, Kelly. John, I'm going to start by saying, I think when we started with this, we had an excellent, and we still have an excellent plan. And it's a concept plan that we understand has to be adjusted as we learn more and start to implement more. People always say, well, when's it going to be? I said, this is going to be continuous. Well, what's the priority? It might be by timing. It might be by funding. And we really have to continue to be strategic in our Heritage, our Heritage Corridor East Master Plan to make sure we deliver the best we can. I think it's been a great project that started. We have a great plan that we have. Understand some concepts change, and we're learning much more. John, go ahead, please.
Question for Mark or Vince. Where are we at on selecting a consultant for the sub-area plan?
Well, the city manager hasn't done anything further with it. Probably needs to delegate it to somebody more organized than myself. So, but also they have understanding the other delegated possibilities are pretty booked with their projects as well. So,
okay. Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk to council about is that, you know, the plan that was developed in 2010 was done by Beckett and Rader, a company that I have an ownership interest in. And I was involved in behind the scenes on part of the concept plan. I sat down the other day with my partners and we talked about this, and my partners and I agree that it is not in the best interest of our firm to revise or update the plan, but they feel it's more important for me to sit on council in order to critique the plan based on the years of experience I have with the battlefield. So just to take it off the table, Beckett and Rader is not interested in updating the plan, even though that was talked about. And I appreciate the confidence of the administration in our firm, but they feel that it's more important for me to be on the council side in order to critique what the changes are going to be and what the long-term vision is going to be for the plan. I hope that makes sense.
It makes sense. I think for your historical knowledge, not only of working on council, but also through Beckett Rader, you know, we know what the vision it is, and we've identified, I think, in our conversations at council, how the priorities change. That heritage, the corridor trail, I think, between the river and Plum Creek is essential, not just to the Heritage Corridor Plan, but to the Community Development Plan. I think we've pretty much embraced that. It's how do we get there? Not that we don't have an idea of the others that might have some adjustments. So I think looking at that, plus everybody's, John, your expertise, but also the councils from their input, I think we can facilitate this through with what's brought back, just as we do other things. Mark?
Yeah, well, I guess in light of that, I know obviously there's benefit to partnering with Beckett and Rader since they've got the files and the background information. But I would say that we have also worked with other firms for the battlefield development. I know just throwing them out there, Quinn Evans Architects was one that did the battlefield protection plan with us with the National Park Service grant. And they've got some familiarity with the landscape and they've done a lot of projects across the country as well. So I know that there's some that we have confidence in that we could work with as well, and probably a good course of action with the blessing of City Council would be to work with the Heritage Corridor Advisory Commission to put together an RFP and get proposals to work with firms to move ahead with this. I'll say a bit time is of the essence because with the appropriation that the Park Service got for land acquisition, we're working with them right now on parcel identification and things of that sort. So it's certainly something we wouldn't want to delay further into the fiscal year, but as soon as the funds are available to start kicking off that project.
Mark, as long as our work is referenced appropriately, we don't have a problem on sharing our electronic data with another consultant firm.
That's appreciated. That's helpful.
If I may, Your Honor, just to expand upon this discussion here, there is a lot of good planning with what we have already in place. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to probably there's probably a small universe out there that has this expertise. Mark mentioned Quinn Evans. There may be a couple of other firms that may, I would be honest with you, I would prefer to end up doing more of a negotiated discussion with firms that we're aware of that.
Vince, I agree. I would not go out for a general RFP.
Yeah.
We need to really focus on a couple of key firms that have, I know Quinn Evans has done work for the National Park Service. I would focus on a couple of key firms that have that experience.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not looking for them to replicate the whole package.
Right.
As I said, there's a lot of good work here that can be built upon. And I think from a cost standpoint, as well as the expertise standpoint, there may be occasionally there is merit to doing a negotiated agreement for professional work like this.
Yeah. I mean, our firm has partnered with with Quinn Evans for over 40 years. So we have the utmost trust that they bring a certain skill set to the community. So, I mean, if you, like Mark said, they're already familiar with it. I have the utmost trust that they'll do a great product for you.
So Vince or Mark, the next steps as we move forward here this evening is you're just looking for some, I guess, thoughts from council to move forward and bring something back that would then appear at an agenda with an agreement and leave that I guess the manner in which that is done through the administration. There's a couple options.
I agree. Need to move forward.
Yeah. Vince, you were going to say?
No, I just said, we can come back as quick as maybe the next meeting with just an update to council. And again, most of the time we're soliciting proposals, but this may be one of those we're very targeted that, again, just using the information. And again, those familiar with the projects of this nature. So if you're okay with the council, we're not going to move forward tonight, but we can report back at the next work session if you like.
Okay. Other thoughts from council? Very good. I think that's it for this. Vince, next item. And we got about 12 minutes. I'll let the clerk make sure I stay on time, but these next two should be fairly quick.
Yeah, I think if we can just talk a little bit about the tree committee, a very brief fact sheet report is that internally, we think it would be better to not have the Commission on the Environment engaged in it. We just think that they do a lot of good work related to other issues, environmental issues with the city and certainly with the river and a lot of the cleanup that has went there with, and to continue that focus. We just think that it may be better to have a separate standalone committee and certainly working with DPS related to the inventory that they have and structuring it there. My only question is, how formal do you want this? I can set it up in a resolution, or you can set it up by ordinance and make it much more formal. So,
John?
Your Honor, I'd go with the commission, make it more formal, council appointments, recommendations by the mayor, council appointments, and then have some really clear articulated responsibilities on what they're going to do.
Other thoughts?
I mean, that's the model that we have with Cody, right?
Yeah.
Formal commission appointed by the mayor, approved by council. Seems to work out very well.
I think, we've had adjustments on sizes of our commissions and added in reductions in the size of those. And I think if that's the manner in which we go, I think working with the administration, what might be the right number for this, I'll say this commission. And I think being very clear what it is and what their task is important. Brian, and then I'll go back.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm assuming we'd have some input from the forestry director in the city of Monroe as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as we have some other commissions, I mean, we have department heads that are kind of help manage it sometimes, and we have council liaisons to items. Those are discussions as we look on this particular commission, what's the best role for all, and then of course council's updates, and I guess I'd look for that to come back and say, here's what we think is the size structure.
My suggestion would be no less than 5, no more than 7, and one of the members would be a representative from city council, just like we have on Cody and some of the other groups.
Okay, yeah, it works for me. I think finding the residents that I always think as we fill boards and commissions, we have numbers, and sometimes we struggle, and I want to make sure that it's best to have a number that's always present versus having a commission that meets that has a vacancy or 2 at each meeting. I think that's kind of why we got to some of those. I think the 5 number seems to be working well right now with some of them. Cody Commission on the Environment, Cody maintains a full participation and have increased numbers, but there's a lot of items that are there and some real passionate people. Other thoughts on this?
Well, this is a commission where you do want to have tree huggers.
Yeah. Okay. Good thoughts. And if there's no other comments, say we have about 8 minutes. I mean, I'll say about 3 minutes. And Vince?
Mayor, I don't know if you want to, you and I chatted about doing the update on the trail advisory. You want to save that for the regular meeting?
No, I think I can do it right now within 3 minutes because it's going to be very
Okay.
brief if council can abide me here. But so we've talked about our Trails Advisory Committee, and we have received 5 residents that are interested in serving. I think there's some, just as John had pointed out with whether it be commissioner committee, some I'll say advisory or people that can kind of help facilitate that. I think should be part of this, that I would move forward to recommend to council. What I'm going to do is we have 5, and I think that they all present background of interest as well as participation. I will send those out to council as moving forward, and then a couple other ideas of we think that may be good selections for people to help not just facilitate it, but to move it along. Maybe some of the exposure and experience and some of the running, being participants in committees or commissions as well, I think will be beneficial. So the timeline on this is Mr. Pastu and I spoke, with our passage of the street millage and some funds that could be available to really give this committee the opportunity to make some good recommendations of our trails, of what we have and what we need to adjust to. It's important what we talk about this summer and then into the fall, that they can make recommendations, as we heard earlier, on our capital improvements and funding opportunities. So we're coming out next year with those discussions that we can have some recommendations to make those considerations on our budget and funding, that we utilize those funds. So want to get them started to just be brought along, because there are some people that have served before, but some that are new. And I think it's good that they get the opportunity to come along at a good pace. And one other item is the county, of course, as we know, has their trails committee, and they have a good group of people. I would reach out there to see if we could make not only a liaison from our committee to theirs, but look to ask one of theirs to be serving on ours. You got to make the points meet when we have our trails, because they can't be at different intersections or locations. So it's kind of critical. Still doing our thing, but making sure we're partnering with them and looking for their partnership with us. Paula, you had your hand up, and then I'll go to John.
Yes, I just wanted to ask, are you familiar that there is a group that goes out on the trail and plants flowers and takes care of the entrance to the trail?
You're talking about the Heritage Trail that goes out to the state park?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cheryl Wassis and some of her friends, they every Saturday morning they walk dogs and they take their dogs home, and they go back and they plant flowers, pull weeds, and have kept that up. The reason I mention it is because if you're going to have, I wouldn't want to see a conflict between what they're already doing and what the trail committee would like to see done without there being a conversation.
Sure. And I think as we have our committee here with our residents, and some of our residents, I think you mentioned some may not be, that's not the issue here. I think it's recognizing where there's other participants and partners that might take that up. This is like planning what's the next trail that we want to develop between those points of contacts. It won't be doing the Heritage Trail, but it will be, what do we do next, and what amenities that we as a city want to make available to the residents as they use the trails in our community. But it's a good point, Paula. And I think it's make sure that that's part of the committee's role, is who else is doing what and how do we partner with them? John.
Yeah, thanks, Your Honor. I just asked Vince if the administration can do a favor and contact the collaborative in Toledo and see if they have a copy of the trail plan that they did for the old Southern Michigan Railroad between Woodcraft Square and downtown. Seems like the city doesn't have a copy of it, but I know that it was published and they did it on behalf of the city. And that would give at least the trail committee a good start at one of the proposed plans, if they have it in their archive.
Yeah,
sure. That'd be great, John. I can tell you that it was probably about 4 years ago. I saw it, I was reading it here. And so I know it's here somewhere, and we'll keep digging, looking for it. And if not, I think the outreach to the collaborative would be wonderful. It really addresses some of that gap area that we're talking about, and which SEMCOG can be supportive on when we talk about funding too. Mark, you had a comment.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we've got great contacts with the collaborative since they were the architect firm that worked on the education center for the battlefield, the renovations there. So we can send a simple email.
Excellent. So I just want to give council an update here at the work session as moving forward. I think that the applications is good to have a review for council. I'll send those out like I do when we make appointments, but I think I want to send them out so you can kind of review them. And then some of the couple extras we're talking about how we get those filled. I'm always open to thoughts and suggestions. All right. Well, we're really running short on time, clerk. I'm sorry. Any other further questions? Seeing none, I think at this time, Vince, will close the work session. And we only have about 3 minutes or so. So please, if you need to, take care of things and we'll be back here shortly. Thank you. Remember about your videos and audio if you're still on. Clerk Treasurer, I know we're about just 7:32 and I think we're waiting for Councilwoman Whitman.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
there she is. Yeah, she is just doing just connecting on her video. You can see I'm getting a little sunlight here. Give me 1 second, please. Spotlight was getting a little warm. So, very well. I think it is 7:33. Clerk, are we ready?
We are ready.
Very good. At this time, we'll call the city council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
Present in Williamsburg, Virginia.
Whitman,
Present in Monroe, Michigan.
Angeli,
Present, City of Monroe.
Vining,
City of Monroe.
Jermaine,
She's excused.
Lamore,
Present, City of Monroe.
Mayor Clark,
Present in the city of Monroe.
Clerk Treasurer Lavoy is present in the city of Monroe.
Very good. Next item, invocation and pledge.
Invocation. So I will begin with this evening's invocation. Grant us the strength to manage the challenges ahead and the wisdom to identify opportunities as we strive to serve our community. As we make decisions, grant us the gift of an open mind, the willingness to learn, and the humility to accept the ideas of others.
Thank you. If you would please join as we pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the
to
flag
the flag of the
United
United States of America
and
and
to
to
the
the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item would be any amendments to the agenda.
I'll see if there's any amendments to the agenda. Mr. Pastu, I think we have an item to discuss.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're going to ask that you add a resolution under council action. It's Metropolitan Areas Protection Standardization Act of 2021. At that point, Mr. Cochran will talk a little bit about background, why we are supporting this resolution.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to put on the agenda the resolution regarding the, what's the name of the act, Vince? It's from OMB.
Metropolitan Areas Protection and Standardization Act.
That's the act.
Yep.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Nicolai, supported by Councilman Felt. Well, I should first, let me ask, is there other items?
None from
Seeing none?
administration.
Very well. Motion by Councilman Nicolai, supported by Councilman Felder to amend the agenda to add the MSA resolution as stated. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
Yes.
Whitman,
Yes.
Angeli,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Lamore,
Yes,
Mayor Clark.
Yes.
All right, the next items is citizen comments not related to an agenda item, and I have letters to read into the record.
Okay, if you will start there and then we'll see if there's others that are present. And we'll go from there.
All right. This is from Barbara Iris Potter, Kalamazoo, Michigan. My name is Barbara Iris Potter, MSW, a longtime Michigan resident. I am an active member of my community and proud of my state. I write this email in support of removal of the Custer Monument in Monroe. I've witnessed the trauma that these monuments cause our Indigenous sisters and brothers. The times have changed in this country, and statues of this type that represent murder and repression of Indigenous people are regularly being removed. The city of Monroe has an opportunity to take a leadership role and remove Custer's statue so that Michigan's Indigenous people can continue to heal as these horrible reminders are eliminated in all of Michigan. Thank you very much, Barbara Potter. The next one is from Molly Tamovich of Ferndale, Michigan. Dear members of Monroe City Council, my name is Molly Tamovich and I'm a resident of Ferndale, Michigan. I'm writing to express my support to remove the Custer equestrian statue. I've had the good fortune to work closely with Michigan's Anishinaabe community on a variety of issues. As Michiganders, we should be grateful for the contributions, values, and convictions of Michigan's first people. How ironic that supporters of this monument claim that history will be erased by its removal, when the history of Michigan's first people was intentionally, systematically, and cruelly erased by men of Custer's ilk for decades. Rather than destroy this monument, the request is simply to place it in a museum where it can be seen in context as an artifact of the past. If the removal of the statue is something that will have zero impact on the city's tourism budget or infrastructure, will help make an amends for some of the injustices done to Michigan's indigenous communities, why wouldn't you honor that request? I hope you take swift and decisive action on this issue, and we see the monument in the museum where it belongs before the end of summer. Sincerely, Molly Tamovich. This is from Reese Gorlick of St. Clair. My name is Reese Gorlick and I've prepared the following statement to be read aloud. When deciding on taking a statue down, the preservation of its history is always called upon. What is most striking is that only the rose-colored history is brought to the forefront. Praise is heaped upon the memory of General Custer for his involvement in the Civil War on the side of the Union, and his legacy was cemented through the efforts of his widow, Elizabeth Custer. The Lakota elders I visited know of his history as well. In the Battle of the Greasy Grass, known in history, you are taught as the Battle of the Little Bighorn. Chief Red Horse's victory could not undo the loss of the tribe's women and children. Their spirits joined with the rest of the innocent spirits Custer claimed from surrounding tribes. Historical figures are rarely as pure of heroes as the fairy tales, but there is no honor in embellishing Custer's active role in genocide. Cast aside a false idol that mocks our ancestors and carry forward the complexity of history while leaving tomorrow better for our children. Best, Reese. This is from Roger Williams, Dowagiac, Michigan. I'm writing to you as regards George Armstrong Custer Equestrian Monument. Please have it removed. It is a stain on the American history, giving honors to the worst kind of human being next to the likes of Hitler and Attila the Hun. Very truly, Roger Williams. This is from Gary Cogswell and Kekwam Markowski, Elder, Little River Band of Ottawa Indians, Muskegon, Michigan. People of conscience have already explained the truth of cruelty, murder, and heinous acts of George Armstrong Custer. I will leave my description, which I think covers it, as Indian killer. I would like to mention 2 Michigan counties that have addressed and solved similar problems or issues in their communities. One county addressed a burial ground issue after an uproar by Native Americans and supporters. The city corrected the costly problem immediately because it was the right thing to do. They also moved on with a separate issue of infrastructure, which I would never have expected such immense success. The second county removed their degrading county emblem of Native American mascot of a Western U.S. tribe. The county said some employees complained, and I emailed that I would bring a group of volunteer Native Americans to explain this county's misguided and harmful use of the Native American image. It was removed. Public leaders of this county also were concerned that we work in a global society and that when foreign visitors come for a presentation, that everyone local at the table would be Caucasian. In other words, speaking to a diverse group of people representing the community would be advantageous for business. In short, Monroe, Michigan might be considered a laboratory specimen of an arrested culture in that it cannot change to reflect and respect present and future culture. Have your Downtown Development Authority and Chamber of Commerce analyze this with the census statistics. Businesses seek a positive working environment. Thank you. I wish well for all Michigan counties. I've kept this address to the council brief for the time limit. And that again was Gary Cogswell. So those are the letters that I received that address the Custer issue. Then I have another set of letters that are addressing Pride Month. And first, just give me a moment. All right, I have 2 letters that I'm going to start with, and then I need to move to my phone. That's where a few other letters are, so it'll just take me a minute to transition. So the first is from Leland Torrance of Frenchtown, Michigan, Frenchtown Township, Michigan. Please read the following. My name is Lee. I live in Monroe, Michigan, and at Frenchtown Township, and I would like to wish everyone in the city and county a very happy Pride Month, including myself. I'm requesting the city of Monroe acknowledge Pride Month by making an official proclamation that is officially Pride Month for the city of Monroe. A lot of LGBT individuals reside in Monroe and would feel much more proud to live here if we were acknowledged. I'm also requesting the city purchase the Pride flag and fly it during the month of June at the bare minimum, if not year round. Thank you. Then the second letter from Nathaniel Spur is he is from Athens Township, Michigan, and it is, the content is very nearly identical. It is identical to the content of the letter I just read, in support of what was stated in the first letter. So I'm simply going to just acknowledge that Nathaniel Spur sent in a letter from Athens Township, Michigan. Then I have a letter from Tom Barton, City of Monroe. If you'll just allow me one moment. This is actually from Tom and Jonathan Barton, and they live in the City of Monroe. We are Tom and Jonathan Barton, and we live in the Frenchman's Bend subdivision of the City of Monroe. We would like to wish everyone in the city and county a very happy LGBTQ+ Pride Month. We are requesting the City of Monroe acknowledge Pride Month by making an official proclamation that is officially Pride Month for the City of Monroe. We are also requesting the city purchase the pride flag and fly it during the month of June as the bare minimum, if not year round. Thank you. Now, some of you may have noticed that it is very similar to the previous letter, but it is not exactly the same. And that's why this one was read. Then the next letter is from Joe Boggs. Your Honor, this one is a little bit longer. I think it will fit in the 3 minutes, but please let me know when I reach that mark. If you could please see. My name is Joe Boggs and I live in Monroe, Michigan. As you likely know, June has become known as Pride Month, and originally it was meant to bring attention to the decades of discrimination and abuse of those who live lifestyles characterized as lesbian, gay, bisexual, and/or transgender. Without a doubt, no human being should ever be abused or unjustly discriminated against. Every human being has equal dignity in the eyes of God and should be treated as such under American law. Nonetheless, the LGBTQ movement behind Pride Month has changed their focus in recent years from preaching peaceful coexistence and tolerance within the wider society to an aggressive ideological refashioning of biological truth that has damaging ramifications. For this reason, I recommend not flying a pride flag on public grounds in the City of Monroe. As a public school teacher, I have witnessed firsthand how teens with psychological disorders are encouraged to embrace transgender identities and even destructive surgeries. These alternative identities often mask much deeper emotional and social problems that are in turn barely addressed and allowed to linger. As a friend and relative to numerous individuals practicing in the field of medicine, I'm also concerned about recent legislative pushes coming from LGBTQ advocates and their political allies that would force doctors, surgeons, psychiatrists, and nurses against their conscience to promote and participate in sex reassignment surgeries and therapies that damage perfectly healthy bodies. 60 Minutes on CBS just conducted a special investigation about the dozens of individuals who experienced significant regret in undergoing these permanent biological transitions. Finally, the lines of legitimate truth are being blurred in society by transgender ideology. One of the best demonstrations of this occurred recently when a male journalist visited the campus of the University of Washington and asked college students there to affirm facts about his physical identity. When he first asked students what they would say if he told them he was female, they all said it was perfectly okay. In succession, he then asked students if it was okay if he identified as a 7-year-old as a different race and a much taller height. Sure enough, they agreed it would be perfectly fine to identify in these clearly false ways. The long-lasting effects of aggressive LGBTQ ideology are already having harmful effects on our community, especially in younger populations. The flying of a pride flag may seem like a harmless act that is increasingly being embraced in many corners of our culture. It truly is a destructive message that perverts biological truths that are necessary for any society to function. Thank you for your consideration, Joe Boggs.
That was 2 minutes and 15 seconds, just for information.
All right. Okay, so that appears to be all from there. And then I have one more set. And these, again, I will read the first one, and these letters all reflect the same message. There's those that will follow are in support of this original letter that I'm going to read, and the content is exactly the same. This one is from Katie Beth Davis, Monroe Township. My name is Katie Beth Davis. I live in Monroe Township, and I would like to wish everyone in the city and county a very happy Pride Month. I'm requesting the City of Monroe acknowledge Pride Month by making an official proclamation that is officially Pride Month for the City of Monroe. I am also requesting the city purchase the pride flag and fly it during the month of June at the bare minimum, if not year round. Thank you. So I am now going to read the names and locations when given of those that sent in letters in support of this content. And again, if someone wanted to request them, they would they can. I will send a packet to council. I was starting to send them one at a time, but we received so many, I just thought it might work out better if I just send you a complete packet. And you will see that this next set of letters in this packet is completely the same. So we have Katie Beth Davis, Monroe Township, Michigan. We have Adam Bradley Schreiber in Monroe, Michigan. We have Elizabeth Detlor, Newport, Michigan. We have Courtney St. Bernard, the city of Monroe. We have Charles Cressbach, lives in the city of Monroe. We have Nicholas Barnhart, lives in the city of Monroe. We have Lynette Manning. Heather Brooks, city of Monroe. Lynette Manning did say that she lives in Monroe. Heather Brooks, I mentioned, in the city of Monroe. Jessica Beaton, maybe Michigan. Carrie Nation and Yvonne Strand, the message is exactly the same, but they sent a letter in together. Carrie Nation is from Carlton and Yvonne Strand is from the city of Monroe. Austin Straka, S-T-R-A-K-A, did not indicate location. And Brooke Troughton lives in Monroe, Michigan. And Bethany Slovic did not indicate location. Lisa and Scott Gizzy, Dundee, Michigan. And Nicholas Barnhart, city of Monroe. And that is all of the letters that were received by the clerk treasurer's office for this meeting and requested to be read. Again, copies will be available in the office. City council will receive a packet, and the list of the names of those that sent the letters in will be recorded in the permanent minutes for the city council.
Thank you, Clerk Treasurer. And so as we continue here through the citizens' comments not related to an agenda item, if there's those that are present here this evening that wish to make additional comments, now would be the time. And as we get introduction to that, be mindful of the rules of the chamber in relation to our virtual meeting, that comments can be up to 3 minutes, but also we'd ask that you state your name and residence of jurisdiction. And I think that's what I want to say.
So far, I see no hands raised, Your Honor. Oh, I see one.
Okay, well, and I guess I'll also say, as you went through those that had submitted a letter, or letters, I should say, most that are present are not those that had submitted. There may be one that has, and that asks that the same letter not be written. But if there's comments that either now or at the end of the meeting regarding citizens' comments on other items that they are welcome to speak. So if you want to move the first item, it looks like John, is that correct?
Correct.
Very well. John, if you can hear, please state your name, jurisdiction of residence, and your 3 minutes, please.
Absolutely. My name is John Petkus. I'm from Rudyard, Michigan, which, in case you don't know, is in the Eastern Upper Peninsula. Do you need anything else, or is that okay?
That's okay. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks.
I first of all would like to thank the city of Monroe and all of you for the opportunity to have public comment on this. I know it may seem like we in the Eastern Upper Peninsula are probably far away from you all, and yet I feel truly connected to you all this evening. So thank you for that. I'm speaking on behalf of I'm surrounded by people who are Anishinaabe. We have the Sioux tribe, we have the Bay Mills tribe, we have other tribes in our area near Traverse City. I myself am not tribal, but I have studied a great deal of history. And at one point in time, I graduated from law school with the intent of working in the law. And I've studied a great deal of the history of our country because I think that's important. I wish to speak specifically about the Custer Monument that's in Monroe and the request to have it removed. I do think that it should be removed. And part of the context of history is so important. Something that today, Custer's not someone that we would honor. he's somebody that we would look at almost along the same mindset. He had the same mindset of what we would consider to be a sociopath or a psychopath. And as such, even understanding that in the past he was viewed differently, looking at the detrimental pieces and the things that he stood for severely hurt large segments of our population. And as such, I would encourage you to take the bold step forward in removing this monument. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments, John. Clerk, next. I'll say next if there's other hands.
There is.
Mika?
Mr. Mika, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Appreciate it. We've heard quite a few derogatory things this evening about the Custer Monument and General Custer in particular. But I want you to keep this in mind, and I'm not going to belabor it because there's a facilitation coming forward that'll take care of many of these things. But it's a military monument. It honors a member of the military. Dishonoring this monument dishonors all those who have served to defend this country. It needs to be left alone in a very prominent locations where it is located currently, and to honor those who have served. Thank you, sir.
All right, Mr. Mika. I might have stepped over his introduction. That was Richard Mika, City of Monroe. Clerk, if there's any other hands.
There is.
Yep. Nathaniel, your name, jurisdiction, and residence, and your 3 minutes starts.
Thank you. Buju, Nat Spur, Indigenous Cost, Bodway, Wadami, and Dow. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nat Spur. I'm a resident of the Pine Creek Indian Reservation in Athens Township, Michigan. I wanted to point out a few things. Katie Beth, our own Katie Beth Davis from Good Trouble Monroe, started this petition asking for the removal of the Custer Monument over a year ago. I saw things as early as June 5th, so we're over a year and into the future from that point. But shortly after she started to circulate that petition, which now has over 14,000 signatures, NCAI, the National Congress of American Indians, which is the oldest and the largest American Indian organization in the country, founded in 1944, put out a statement after Katie Beth started this individual petition. And I want to quote what Fawn Sharp, the president of NCI, said at that time, which was June 13th of last year. The growing movement across the country to rid our shared spaces of symbols that represent hate, genocide, and bigotry illustrates that it's past time for all cities to stand on the right side of history moving forward. So that happened after Katie Beth Davis started this petition over a year ago. Since then, on May 21st of this year, so Friday, May 21st, the United Tribes of Michigan, and this was thanks to Pokagon tribal elder Julie Dye, voted unanimously. So all 12 federally recognized tribes of the state of Michigan voted unanimously at the United Tribes of Michigan conference to condemn the Custer Monument and ask for its removal or relocation. So I wanted to point that out because that's a big deal. I mean, United Tribes of Michigan represent all 12 federally recognized tribes in the state. So over 100,000 voting age members of those tribes is who they represent. And the United Tribes of Michigan voted unanimously to support full removal and relocation of the Custer Monument. So I wanted to thank, obviously, Katie Beth Davis, as well as Pokagon tribal elder Julie Dye, for all of their work in moving this forward. And the last point that I wanted to make is, shortly after Katie Beth started her petition over a year ago, another petition, which didn't get nearly the number of signatures, that was in support of keeping the monument in its current location and not doing anything to change it. That petition was sent to all of you, the Monroe City Council, and to Tim Wahlberg, the congressman for the 7th District. While you guys have done the correct thing, and I want to thank you again, I thanked you before for the RFQ and all the work that you've done, Tim Wahlberg has stayed silent on this issue. And Tim Wahlberg is a pretty extreme guy. He's somebody that said that President Barack Obama should have been impeached over his birth certificates. We all know he voted not to certify the election in last year in 2020. So he's a pretty extreme guy. So for him to stay silent on this issue, I think speaks volumes. Thank you very much, Chimagwich.
Thank you. You just at your 3 minutes. Thank you, Nathaniel. I'm sorry. Clerk Treasurer.
I think that's all, but let's just wait 1 second because sometimes something pops up.
I do not see any other hands at this time.
That appears to be all at the moment.
Move forward. Next item, please.
All right, the next item is communication, item 3148, LOCC salary for local elected officials.
Mr. Pastu, do you have some introductory comments? And then I guess for not, I'm council's aware, but anybody else, what the LOCC is?
Thank you, Your Honor. The LOCC, Local Officers Compensation Commission, they meet twice or once every 2 years to review the compensation for mayor, city council, and clerk treasurer. Those are elected officials. It's set up by Michigan statute and is used as a means of by a number of other communities to evaluate the compensation without directly having the council involved. So they met earlier this year, obviously May 11th, a little less than a month ago, to review that. And they made a recommendation to increase the compensation for the mayor and city council. That was one of their actions, $1,000 for the mayor position and city council. That would take effect if no action was taken on the part of the council the following January. And then also recommended, similar to what we are looking at for other non-union employees, 2% increase for the clerk treasurer position for effective January 1, 2022, and then again January 2023. Those were separate actions. The mayor and city council were one, and the clerk treasurer's was a separate action. You contained in the packet is the correspondence from the chairperson, Mr. Yo. And so I present that to council. If no action is taken, it would take effect within, I believe, 30 days after the chairperson, the LOCC chairperson's submitted correspondence to the clerk's office. So with that, I'm just presenting that to council for communications and whether you're interested in taking any action.
I'm mute on comments or Councilman Michelangelo, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Your Honor. Mr. Pastu, can the city council have the prerogative to make any changes to the local compensation board recommendations?
I'm gonna ask Mr. Buds to participate in this, but my understanding is that either you accept it or you don't. I'm not sure what latitude there is to making any changes with that.
Mr. Buds, if you just confirm if so.
Your Honor and Council, based on our ordinance, specifically section 22-15 regarding determinations of the local officers compensation committee, the commission's determination of the salaries would be effective 30 days after the filing of that determination with the clerk treasurer, unless it were specifically rejected by council. In that event, then if that determination is rejected, then the existing salaries would prevail. It's my opinion that we have two action items that were made by the local officers compensation committee, one relating to the compensation of mayor and council, and the other being the determination as it relates to the clerk treasurer's position.
Councilman?
Well, Your Honor, my question is not necessarily regarding the mayor and council, but I've always had a concern that the clerk treasurer is not fully compensated based on comps that we did in our compensation study. And, obviously we're kind of at a rock and a hard place. If we don't agree with the compensation commission's recommendation, her salary is going to be lower. So we don't have any other choice than to recommend their salary increase. But I do think our clerk treasurer position, based on some of the comps, and I'm looking at the sheet relative to like Holland, Michigan, Marquette, for example, our clerk treasurer is paid lower than what the comps are for other communities our size. So there's not much we can do. I'm not going to not accept their recommendation. because I think Michelle is obviously the clerk treasurer is worth more than what they're recommending. But I just always have this concern that I think that position is undervalued based on what's going on with other communities.
Thank you, Councilman. I think I'm going to add a comment here, and then I'll see if there's other council members that wish to as well. I agree. Our clerk treasurer position is unique within the city governments, municipalities throughout the state. And when you start looking at independent clerks and independent treasurers, and it's generally two positions. Our structure is a little bit different, but still the compensation, I think, lacks where it should be. Councilman, you're correct. The Compensation Commission did receive information from the administration, HR, and with the comps that were there. And I know they had discussion on this because of we've had these conversations as a council. And while we cannot change what's being proposed, we either just let it accept it or reject it. But I think we have to at least accept it before as we move forward. I want to add one other item. The Compensation Commission meets at this time of the year because it is unknown who will be in office come January. And that's the structure of our charter. So it's not a matter of compensating the individuals or not compensating individuals that are currently elected officials in the city, but what is the merit in which the position itself should be compensated. And then as the election comes through in November, come January, that is instituted. So I just a clarification, and I know Mr. Pastuk reviewed the mayor and the council, and what was proposed as we have on our fact sheet is the increase in the mayor's position of 1,000 and the council is 500, which was, I thought was interesting. They have a dollar amount, but they went percentage in the others. When you start doing those comparisons, what the percent would be in mayor and council is actually higher. I think the mayor and council positions, again, not persons, but positions, is adequately funded as it currently is. But we have two motions that we could take, or we could take no action and it goes forward as it is, as Mr. Budd said, or we could make any action on either of the item if council wishes to do so. Just wanted to provide my thought on this. Other questions or comments from council? Councilor Michelangeli.
Your Honor, the Compensation Commission is set up by ordinance. I certainly don't have a problem with the Compensation Commission, which are city residents determining what they feel is appropriate for the mayor and city council. Don't have a problem with a resident saying mayor's position is worth this, council's position is worth this. Don't have a problem if they want to reduce our salaries, if they think that the council and mayor are doing a bad job. What I do is the clerk treasurer is a department head level, regardless if they're elected or appointed. It's a department head level that needs to be compensated based on the responsibilities commensurate with the position. So my feeling is that we don't have to do it now, but maybe the council should reconsider amending the local commission ordinance to basically say that the commission can establish the salary for the mayor and council. We either accept it or we don't accept it, but that the council has the latitude either to accept their recommendation for non-mayor and city council positions to make sure that that position is adequately compensated based on the market.
I think that's an interesting concept that I think back as we may have had this discussion previously is it because it's the mayor and council then is taking a course of action for another elected official that's not ourselves. And it does allow a second review with some maybe some understanding. I think our local officers' compensation I appreciate, and their desire and what and they're willing to deliberate and come up with the recommendations. And I think they do a fine job, and I thank them for that. But I think in this case, the clerk treasurer, I agree with you. I think it's something that maybe we should be, as a council in the future, as we get through this item tonight, take this up for a discussion and maybe even some thoughts from administration or reviews by the city attorney to make sure what it is how we go about maybe taking that into an item. Mr. Buzz, I saw you raise your hand. Now we'll see if other comments.
Your Honor, the only thing I was going to say, and this is more issue spotting than anything at this point, but the Local Officers Compensation Commission statute and state law talks about each elected official. And I think that's why we get into the situation of elected officials and the role of the clerk treasurer. Happy to look at that if that's something that Your Honor and council would desire, but something as an issue spotting that we may have to deal with or may not be able to deal with in that particular circumstance.
Yeah, I appreciate that as a follow-up. I think that's great. And Councilman Michelangelo, I appreciate you having the conversation about this. It's important for not only council, but for those listening and to understand this. Councilman Felder, did you have your hand up? Okay, I'm sorry. Councilman Michelangelo, go ahead.
Your Honor, I kind of agree with you. I think the mayor and council salary is appropriate where it's at. I'm not on council like you're not on. You're not serving as mayor. Because of the salary, we're doing it because of our community commitment. So I appreciate them recognizing the fact that maybe our workload has gone up, and they said in their minutes that we've been able to, the council have made some really critical decisions on behalf of the community. But I think our salaries are good where they're at, but I do agree that we should move forward, accept their recommendation for the clerk treasurer at this point in time.
So if I understand, back to Mr. Buzz, and correct me here, if there's any action that council wishes to take on the two items, then it would require a motion, second, and a vote. If there's no action, then both would move forward as they are. But they did specifically have them separated out along the way to which you just said, Councilman.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion that the mayor and city council salary remain the same.
Oh,
Your Honor, if I may, just for purposes of being consistent with the ordinance, if Councilman Michelangelo would be comfortable with saying that the commission's determination as it relates to the salary of the mayor and council would be rejected.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion that the recommendation from the Local Officers Compensation Commission for the mayor and city council be rejected.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Michelangelo, supported by Councilman Felder, regarding the Local Officers Compensation Commission for the mayor and council position be rejected. I see no other comments. So clerk, let's address that first. Please call the roll.
Felder?
Yes.
I'm sorry, what's the question? So this would be to reject the recommendation that was provided.
So Councilperson Felder voted yes. Whitman?
Yes.
Michelangelo?
Yes.
Vining?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the Local Officers Compensation Commission relative to the increase in the clerk treasurer's salary.
Question for the city attorney.
Yes, Mr. Buds, or Councilman, go ahead, please.
Is it necessary that any motion be made, or do we simply not take any action?
Your Honor, if I may, I don't believe an action is necessary. However, given that the split that appears to be developing in the intentions of council, I would recommend for clarification in the minutes that a motion to accept and place that on file would be appropriate at this time.
In that case, I will second the councilman's motion.
Thank you, Councilman Felder. I appreciate the comment too. For this brings clarity here. Nothing further. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Michelangelo?
Yes.
Vining?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes, thank you, and thank you for the discussion, and my thanks, and I know from the council as well as to the Local Officers Compensation Commission. I say it's one of those items that may not have a frequency to meet, but when that commission does meet, it speaks and takes a lot of time to come to the decision and make recommendations, which we support their participation and thank them for their time. Clerk, next item, please.
Next item is under council action. It's item 3149, authorization of option to purchase and sale of property by Port of Monroe to Monroe Solar LLC.
Thank you. City Manager Pastou, or?
Let me just do the quick introduction. Council, we're presenting before you an option to approve a purchase of sale of property by the Port of Monroe to Monroe Solar LLC. Any sale of property by the Port of Monroe is required to be authorized by the city council.
Okay, Council Michael.
Your Honor, I took a look at the purchase agreement, and I think everybody on council knows that I'm not a big fan of selling city property. Because typically cities sell their property for less than market. They always end up buying property for more than market. However, in this case, I went through it, took a look at it, took a look at what the sale per acre is. It seems to be a equitable position for the port in terms of selling the property for a potential solar farm. So I would make the motion that we, as a council, move to approve the resolution authorizing the option to purchase in the sale of the property by the Port of Monroe to Monroe Solar LLC.
Second.
There's a motion by Councilman Michael, supported by Councilman Lamore, in support of item 3149, the authorization and option to purchase and sale of property to the Port of Monroe to Monroe Solar LLC.
Your Honor, Councilman Bud has his hand up.
Mr. Buds.
Your Honor, I just always like to mention at one of these transactions, just so that the record's clear for all of council, that I provide legal service to both the port and the city. Therefore, if there was any concern about that, we could always address that. But I like to make a reminder whenever there's a transaction involving the port on that issue, so that we don't lose sight of that. If there's any questions or concerns, let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Buds. And Council Michael, I appreciate the additional information for council and those listening, because, you know, the port has, as we know, long ago, much was sold off by the port. And our current structure with the director and the commission have moved forward to regain property in the Port of Monroe with ownership in the city. And I think that while this may seem different, it is different from the reasons you just said. And I think it still meets those needs. Mark, Mr. Cochran had a comment. I know we have a motion in a second. Mr. Cochran?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to point out that Gregory Adanin with Ben Tower and Monroe Solar is a guest, in case we wanted to allow him to say any remarks or if council had any questions.
I guess if he has, it is an item related to the business. If he has any comments, Gregory, you're welcome to speak. There is a motion and a second to support, but if not, see if you raise a hand. There he is. So you have a comment, Greg? You know, just identify yourself, please, and relationship to this.
Good evening, everyone. Not sure if I was able to connect.
You're with us. Go ahead.
Hello. Well, it's a pleasure to be here tonight, and thank you, everyone that we worked with, and the council here and mayor for supporting of the project. We're really looking forward to making it a reality. The hard work, starts now, but I thank you very much for your support. We're at the technical due diligence stage at this point. This was a crucial milestone that we needed to reach with having an option to purchase the property. We will move forward with the project and try to bring this development to Monroe. And thank you again.
Thank you, Gregory. Thanks for joining and your comments. Councilor Michael.
Your Honor, before we take the vote, I just wanted to compliment the city attorney. I thought the option agreement was really well prepared and constructed.
Thank you. There's no further comments. There's a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
Yes.
Whitman,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Lamore,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Next item.
Next item is item 3151, proposed ordinance 21-005, an ordinance to amend sections in chapter 699.
I don't, Mr. Pastu, if there's any comments. If not, we'll move forward. I see Councilman Michelangelo his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I just have a question. I think Barry may be on.
Yes, he is.
Online. This is going to basically restructure some of the development agreements that we have relative to connection and hookups. I know that about a year ago that the council had supported was it London Township in terms of they're making an effort to get a USDA grant to put water lines in. Will this impact them? Because I know that they've been trying to estimate that cost. And I don't want to do anything that could, if they're still in the process, that would impact their chances of having access to public water. That's the question I have.
Okay, Mayor and Council, Barry LaRoyce, City of Monroe Water and Wastewater Utilities. As far as the system development fee change, that occurred July 1st of 2020. The reason why we haven't brought it to an ordinance change in front of council is because of the lead and copper rule revisions that we've been working through because the state continues to give us different guidance that affects our ordinances. So, but London Township is aware of this change. We made them aware of this actually during the budget preparation of fiscal year 2020-21. So they already have those costs built into their buying cost capacity when we would structure their agreement.
Okay, I mean, that was my concern. I didn't want anything to complicate that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Very good.
Your Honor, I'll move that the proposed ordinance 21005 to amend sections 699, 69907, 69923, 27, 32, 36 within chapter 699 be placed on the floor for its first reading and a public hearing scheduled for June 21st, 2021.
Second.
There's a motion by Councilman Klein, supported by Councilman Felder on item 3151, proposed ordinance 21-005, as stated for the first reading and set a public hearing as stated. Clerk, please call the roll.
McPherson Felder,
Yes.
Whitman,
Yes.
Michaelangeli,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Lamore,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes.
Ordinance 21-005, an ordinance to amend section 699-07, 699-23, 699-27, 699-32, and 699-36 of chapter 699, Water of the Monroe Code.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is under council action. It was added to the agenda and it is a discussion of a resolution in support of the Metropolitan Areas Protection and Standardization Act of 2021.
Mr. Pastu or Mr. Cochran?
I'll have Mr. Cochran walk through the proposed resolution for council.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. By way of introduction, as you may be aware, I think we brought it to your attention earlier this year, but the U.S. Office of Management and Budget is considering a proposal to modify the minimum population threshold for a community to be designated a metropolitan statistic area. Right now, the minimum threshold is 50,000 population area, of which the city of Monroe qualifies with our metro area, which also qualifies all of Monroe County as a metropolitan statistic area. The proposed modification would raise that threshold to 100,000 population, which would jeopardize our designation. The consequences of that may seem menial in that it impacts some studies and reporting that impact our area, such as employment figures, economic indicators, housing market analysis, housing pricing index, as well as some other reports done by the federal government in the state of Michigan. But while that may seem inconsequential, many of those reports and also the population statistic are used by other federal agencies for designation of federal funding, whether that be our community development block grant or transportation dollars or other federal programs. And so we're very concerned about the impact that this could have on not just the city of Monroe, but all of our neighboring communities in Monroe County. The city did prepare and submit formal comments to OMB earlier this year in March and sent a copy of those remarks to Senators Peters, Stabenow, as well as Representative Wahlberg. And last week we were contacted by Senator Peters' office that he's introduced a piece of legislation regarding this issue, while it wouldn't outright protect our metropolitan statistical area designation as a metro area, what it does require is OMB to do more, provide more information and research to Congress, as well as provide more information on the scientific methodologies on making these determinations, as well as the results and outcomes and implications this would have on affected communities. So really drive the decision-making process to include both a longer public comment period as well as more information. And so Senator Peters was asking if we would consider supporting this bill, and that's why we're putting forth this resolution for City Council's consideration this evening.
Thank you, Mark. Comments or questions from council? Councilman Felder, you?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Mark, I was wondering if the CBO had a similar measure to the MSAs.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
The Congressional Budget Office have a counterpart measure of the same thing, and what is their threshold?
I'm not sure about that. A lot of the federal agencies may not designate funding or use the term metropolitan statistic area, but they use the same qualities and measures as MSAs, such as population.
Mm-hmm.
And so our concern is if OMB changes their population, it could have a resulting impact on other agencies continuing to do so or doing the same.
I'm certainly supportive of the argument, but if we're working with Peters and Stabenow and Wahlberg's office to get this through, there's other entities that are looking at similar things from a different angle, depending on if you're in the executive or legislative branch. And so if it aligns them further, or if there's a resolution there that we can work with them to adjust the MSAs or their similar counterparts in the CBO as well.
We haven't received indication from any of our partners that any other agencies are looking at changing their designation or thresholds in regard to this matter. I'll know the Michigan Municipal League, SIMCOG, the state of Michigan actually sent us notification of this proposed change. So we haven't received word of any other proposed changes at the federal level.
Thank you, Mark, but I'm supportive of the resolution.
Other comments from council? So this is under council action for motion action. Councilman Felder, do you?
Sure, we'll make a motion. One sec, let me get the piece of paper in front of me.
I'm sorry, do we have a motion already, clerk?
No.
All right, I apologize. Councilman Felder, please go.
I will make a motion to support the Metropolitan Areas Protection and Standardization Act of 2021.
Or
Motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilman Michelangeli on the item regarding the MSA and the resolution. And I know the clerk will be adding a number later. So further comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Felder,
Yes.
Whitman,
Yes.
Michelangeli,
yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Lamore,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes, thank you. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item will be the consent agenda, and for approval of payments to vendors, the amount should read $1,023,176.25, 1,023,176.25.
Thank you. Are there any items on the consent agenda that council wishes to have pulled for further discussion? Any items on the consent agenda? Seeing none from council, any items on the consent agenda, those present here this evening wish to have pulled for further discussion? Seeing no comments, motion be in order.
Your Honor,
Councilman Felder.
I'd make a motion that all items on the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, and any resolutions adopted.
Or
Motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilman Michelangelo, that all items on the consent agenda be accepted and carried out. The recommendations, I'm sorry, all items on the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, the recommendations carried out, and resolutions adopted. Thank you, Councilman. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Felder,
Yes.
Whitman,
Yes.
Michaelangeli,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Littlemore,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes.
I have no
Um,
further items, Your Honor.
Okay, that's June. Councilman Felder.
Thank you, Your Honor. First of all, Memorial Day was last week. Certainly not one of our happy holidays but one that we should all be in observance of, and certainly be thankful for, both for the day itself and the men and women who served and who didn't end up making it home, who we all need to remember. And then, of course, June is Pride Month. So to any who do celebrate, happy Pride Month to all of you. I think the city should endeavor to be as welcoming as possible to all of our residents. So that's certainly not a bad thing. I'm not sure it should be forced on anyone, but in the words of one of our residents this evening, but I don't know that it is. Happy Pride Month to those who celebrate. Thank you, Your Honor. That's all I have.
Thanks, Councilman. Councilwoman Whitman.
I really have nothing to, no announcements or questions or comments, other than to say happy 26th birthday to my one grandson, AJ. I don't know how he got to be that old. That is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Michaelangeli.
Yeah, Your Honor, a couple items. First, I want to congratulate Matt on the newborn in his family. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Second, I would like, maybe at the next council meeting under the workshop, I'd like to get a more detailed report relative to Ladybird Park. I know that there's a number of outstanding construction issues there relative to grading, concrete work, landscaping. Really like to get a more detailed report on really what's going on. We invested $1.2 million on the park. It's one of our largest park projects in the last 30 or 40 years. And, I've been out there a number of times. I've shared some photos with the city administration. I just don't think the level of workmanship that we have at that park is really what we should expect. And if the contractor is deficient, then they need to be held accountable. So I think it's appropriate, based on the number of years that the council saved up for that project, that we have a full accounting of the status of that project at one of our workshop meetings. Does that seem reasonable?
Very good. I agree. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, the next item I have, Your Honor, over the weekend, doing some errands. I happened to travel down Monroe Street from Frenchtown down to Kroger's, and I noticed along the way that, and I wasn't really looking for them, but I noticed 4 dead trees. One over by Noble Avenue, 2 downtown on the west side of Monroe Street by First Street, and a very large one between 8th and the driveway that goes into Kroger's. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is, as a resident, sometimes we don't see the forest from the trees, no pun intended. But as a visitor that's driving down Monroe Street, when you see dead trees, you think right away that maybe there's a level of disinvestment in the community that they can't even get rid of a dead tree and plant a new one. So I wanted to bring that up. The other comment was in regards to the airport. We approved a contract for crack sealing and markings. I brought this up before. We have the port on the east side. We have the airport on the west side. They're both economic development assets to this community. I would really like to get serious about the replacement of the airport terminal. Based on other communities around the state, small communities like Everett, Michigan, West Branch, Pellston, for example, Harbor Springs, they all have really nice small terminal buildings. And based on the federal funding allocation, the feds pick up 90%. So maybe we forego the $150,000 a year stipend that we get and go into the other program where we can put in a larger project where the federal government puts in 10%, the state, the Michigan Aeronautics Commission puts in 5, and then the local investment is only 5%. So we could build a nice terminal building with a relatively small amount of local contribution. So I'd really like that to be on a work session in terms of, let's start making somewhat of an investment in our local airport facility, besides regular maintenance. That's all I have this evening, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. I know that a short while ago, we had some conversations about future projects, future discussions. I think this was on that list, and it's probably as we work our way through the couple of important ones we have, I think we can start that conversation, because I think it is, we've recognized that our municipal airport could be a destination opportunity for what we have in our community and community surroundings. So I appreciate you bringing that up. For that, Mr. Pestu has a comment.
Well, just 2 of the items, we'll follow up on a report to council regarding Labor Park, where we are with it, and what issues need to be remaining. I know that they did a punch list last week and looking at it, and I know there's been some concern about the drainage related to the water feature. The other thing with it is that we do have it on, I just looked at real quick again on my regular department head meetings. I have it as a future item for council is scoping the airport terminal. I do have it on there, and hopefully we can find some time to put it on there for discussion with that. So interestingly enough, Mr. Lewis has told me that there's been, whatever, for other reason, interest in airport hangars out there late, more than the capacity that we have. So we'll bring it back and maybe talk even in a broader sense about the airport and where we are with the overall master plan for it. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Sorry, I'm going through Councilwoman Vining.
Well, my question was also about Labor Park, and it's been answered, so I don't have any further comments this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I had to remember where I was at in my order here, who spoke last, and I don't get through the list here of council members in order. Councilwoman Germaini's not with us. There's some family items, so everybody please keep your thoughts about her and her family, and we'll chat later. Councilman Lamore.
Thank you, Your Honor. First of all, congratulations to Matt and his family on the new addition. Great thing to have a new addition like that. Secondly, Veterans Day Parade, just a little bit of a rundown on that. Excellent to see all the participants, number 1 and number 2, to see everybody's face at the parade. Nicely lined route. It was a beautiful day. Couldn't ask for anything better. And I had the sincere pleasure of transporting 5 veterans down the parade route. So definitely a feather in my cap for doing that. So more than happy to do that. And it was definitely my pleasure for all that they've done for us. And that's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. I do have a couple comments. I'm going to start, follow up with Councilman Felder on the Pride Month celebration as we think of all of how we serve our community and embrace all within our community. There is a Pride Month celebration on June 12th at our Munson Park within our city from 2 to 6 p.m. So the opportunity that presents itself here within our community for others to embrace and know each other. The MCOP ALCC Outdoor Family Fun Night is coming up on June 16th, the 21st, from 5 to 7 p.m. I think it's timely to Councilman Colangeli's comments that we opportunities to get some things in the best order possible for that. I'll just say celebration there at the park and the entities that are there. This month is June, of course, and before our next meeting, we will have June 19th, of course, which was Juneteenth Day. And I think back as we periodically make our, I'll say, proclamations and celebrations. We did that in a broad sense here last year and the year before with some in-person meetings and a guest speaker to talk to our community. I think we still continue to want to make sure we embrace what Juneteenth Day is and what that means to members of our population in our community, but also our community as a whole and our country as a whole as we move forward and celebrate that day. I don't have a list of items that are being conducted this time on June 19th, but if I know the community college and others have activities and opportunities to participate. Also coming up here, it seems to be announcement day. There's a lot of activities, and I'll come back to that when I talk about our future. But the Downtown Monroe Business Network sidewalk sales in downtown Monroe is also set for Saturday, June 12th from 9:30 to 2 p.m. So please come down and support our local businesses. And I think back, it was 2 years ago when Brown Bag started. Now they're celebrating their second year and doing very well in our community. And we've had new businesses come in, restaurants as well as shops. And please come down and support them, but also see what's transpired over the past year. And I know that we have one of our attendees this evening will speak to this, but so I'll pass on Robert S. Duncanson and the continued conversation about that gentleman and his history back in Mr. Barley's with us. But before I do so, I want to talk about future meetings, but also tie that to what we started seeing here in the past couple of weeks. Both Councilman Felder and Councilman Lamore mentions Memorial Day and the right reasons why we honor that day and bring back our thoughts to those that gave the ultimate sacrifice and why we're here able to be and celebrate our lives, but at the cost of many. But the parade itself was an opportunity to just bring the community back out and honor veterans, but honor those that we lost. And I remember that I recall back at the end of the parade, the comments made and how thankful those that were speaking were to see that many residents that came out to support that. And I think that's what we're seeing here with transitions as we get through our COVID year and start to make some transitions. I watched the state as we follow some of those guidelines. And as was stated at our work session, there's a mayor's state of emergency of having conversations with the administration and our clerk and our department heads of how we move forward. We've made some transitions within City Hall that we're getting close to being able to conduct open meetings and accommodate those that will be attending. So I will have more at the next meeting regarding that, but I think we're coming to a point along with the state in July about how we start to open items up and move forward, but always cautious that if things transition opposite way, which I don't anticipate, and we hope not. I think we're well past, as was said earlier, and closer to the end than where we started. So those are my comments for this evening, and I'll move along. Clerk Treasurer Lavoy.
I have no comments this evening. I have no comments this evening, Your Honor. Sorry, it's been a long day, but taxes, just a reminder, are due June 30th. And there are many ways to make those payments. But again, if you haven't received your bill, please contact the treasurer's office and we will get you a copy of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager Pastor.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. I just had one item. If I pull it up here, earlier today in the clerk's office, we had the opening for the Custer Monument request for qualifications, letters of interest, and we received 4 interested parties. E. Estelle Associates out of West Bloomfield, Eleonora Estelle and Dr. Michael Stone Richards submitted their RFQ. Dr. Kyle White with the School of Environment and Sustainability from the University of Michigan submitted their qualification. Blended Collective out of Birmingham, Lydia Mitchell and Kevin Cattels were the individuals that would represent them. And then Michael Lahote out of Monroe submitted a proposal as well. 3 out of the 4 actually participated when we held a pre-RFQ discussion to talk a little bit about the project and what it represents at this point in time. As we put together the proposal that I'll be forwarding these RFQs to obviously Mayor Clark, Mark Cochran, Andy Clark with the County Museum System, and then also Brian Egan with the Michigan Historical Commission for review. Given the numbers that we have, I don't know if there's a need necessarily to eliminate any of those. I think we may set up some time period, usually an hour or so, to discuss and interview them with that. And our desire is to update the council, maybe the first meeting in July, where we're at with this process as well. So, very pleased with what we've got. Some capable firms that are interested in the process. So, just wanted to let council know and the community as well where we were at.
Great.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. Clerk Treasurer, next item is citizens' comments.
Your Honor, Councilwoman Vining's hand is up.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Councilwoman Vining, please, your comments.
Your Honor, thanks for coming back to me. I forgot to wish all of our class of 2021 graduates in the county success and much congratulations, and to their parents who went through it with them.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We should have thought that it was in not only in the paper, but in other publications and seeing the news. A great shout out to all those that are moving on in their life from high school, and the families also, as you said, the parents and their
and during this rough and unusual and unprecedented year. So
absolutely. Thank you, Councilwoman. Clerk Treasurer, as we go to the comments, I know that Mr. Barley was on earlier, but with some connection items. I see he stayed with us, which is good, and I think he wants to make some comments about Robert S. Duncanson. If we could start there, and then we'll go down the list.
Okay, one moment.
There's, okay, Patrick, if you unmute, and your comments here this evening, 3 minutes, and please state your name and residence.
My name is Patrick Barley. I live in Monroe Town Site. And I am a Rotary's chairman for the Robert S. Duncanson bicentennial. And we want to celebrate his what he did for the world in art. I am sending the council a request for a proclamation to establish an annual Robert Sullivan Duncanson Day. Mr. Duncanson was born in 1821 in Fayette, Seneca County, New York. In 1831, at the age of 10, his family moved to Monroe. They called it the thriving city of Monroe back then. And he spent his formative years here from 10 to 19. And his family had a very successful carpentry and house painting business near the corner of 8th and Harrison Street, the first ward of Monroe. Duncanson was inspired by American landscape artist Thomas Cole, and he created renowned landscape paintings and is considered a second-generation Hudson River painter. Duncanson spent the majority of his time in Cincinnati, but he felt Monroe as a home. And he helped develop the Ohio Valley landscape tradition. As a free black man in antebellum America, Duncanson engaged in abolitionist community in America and England to support and promote his work. He operated in the cultural circles of Cincinnati, Detroit, Montreal, and London. He's internationally known and renowned. And he is buried here in Monroe. The primary art historical debate concerning Duncanson concerns his role in contemporary racial issues played in his work. And they feel that some of his work used racial metaphors. But Duncanson was considered the 19th century's best of the West painter by Smithsonian Institute in the 2011 article written by Lucinda Moore. Like many Black Americans, Duncanson's history was lost during the antebellum period. It is our goal to ensure his history is retold, never forgotten again, and annually celebrated in the town he grew up, the town he chose to be buried. Now, the town of Fayette in the county of Seneca, New York, has established an entire year, beginning June 1st, 2021 to May 31st, 2022. It's dedicated to Robert Sullivan Duncanson. They're having festivals in several towns in the county. They're having art shows and plein air contests. The city of Cincinnati, the town where Duncanson spent most of his life, has had an annual day set aside for him Robert Sullivan Duncanson Day. The Taft Museum of Art has Duncanson's 9-foot murals in its entrance halls, and the Taft Museum endows an annual Duncanson Artist in Residence program. It is our goal to make the city of Monroe and the county of Monroe a center for art, and in part dedicated to continuing the legacy and teaching of the art by Robert Sullivan Duncanson. He's also renowned in Canada as the father of landscape painting. He went up there and established the landscape painting school in Canada, in Montreal and Toronto. So he's known all over the world. And we want to make sure that when people know that he is from Monroe, that he is buried in Monroe, and that we celebrate him. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. And just for council's awareness, Mr. Barley and his committee have made outreach to the city as we start to talk about how we recognize what a great asset not only to Monroe and his artists as a landscape artist, but also internationally known, and bring this to the forefront. It did come through during Black History Month. Florence Buchanan also had written articles, and it started to have momentum to understand and bring this light to our community of great person and his his achievements and accomplishments. So this will be something that'll come forward in July. Obviously, as we work toward our in-person meetings, the opportunity to council's consideration of a proclamation of recognition and setting a date aside, as well as maybe as a foundation for future opportunities when we talk our art fair and other things coming back to be associated to Mr. Duncanson. And so it's kind of an opportunity to think about. I'll get to make sure the proclamations consideration will be sent to council for thoughts as we move forward. So thank you, Mr. Barley. Clerk Treasurer, I think we have another hand up. Yeah, Cole, name, please, and jurisdiction of residence.
Sure, Colvin, City of Monroe. Real quick before I start, I just want to mention that we did change the Pride picnic time to 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. To try and beat the heat. There's not a whole lot of people coming. So also, I'm glad to see that 4 people applied for the RFQ. I was a little surprised that there's someone from Monroe on there. Obviously, I'm not asking anyone to comment. That's not on me. I just believe the city council wanted to look outside to try and remain unbiased. I don't know the people though. Moving on to my actual comments, I just want to say that the letter read from Joe Boggs earlier is not based on real science, and regardless of the anecdotes of those studies, it's well documented that respecting the gender identity and pronouns of transgender people and youth dramatically reduces suicide and suicide attempts. And recognizing who they are elevates their happiness and confidence of those who are some of society's most vulnerable. And I know a lot of queer and trans people, and not one of them would say that you can pretend to be someone of a different age or race. That is simply preposterous. As a transgender, non-binary 36-year-old myself, who feels euphoric wearing binders, which flattens my chest, and occasionally packing, which means having a prosthetic penis, I would like to say that we should all want to live in a society with bodily autonomy. Certainly, I know all of you would not want someone to control the length of your hair, or what piercings you have, or what clothes you can wear, or what surgeries you get to undergo. Surgeries are never come to lightly, as a person who's had 2 in the last year for other medical reasons. So I'm just happy to share. I'm considering top surgery myself, so happy Pride to you and to Joe. And moving on, finally, I would like to share a quote by Marsha P. Johnson, who was a Black American gay liberation activist and self-identified drag queen during the 60s, the Stonewall uprisings, which kickstarted the gay rights movement. And Marsha said, "History isn't something that you look back at and say, oh, it was inevitable. It happens because people make decisions that are sometimes very impulsive and of the moment, but those moments are cumulative realities." And so listening to those words, I ask, as usual, that everyone recognize the weight of the decisions that you make today and tomorrow in the positions of your power when it comes to repairing relationships with Black, Indigenous, and people of color, as well as when it comes to standing beside the queer and transgender community as they continue to fight for their safety and rights today. Thank you all, and again, happy Pride.
Thank you, Cole, for your comments and the clarification on the time. I appreciate that. Was not aware at the time. So again, just to follow up, so it's stated it is Pride Month celebration is at Munson Park on June 12th, which is Saturday, and it is from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Thank you. Other comments from those present this evening? I see we have another hand, clerk. Dr. Denton, your name, please, and jurisdiction of residence.
Dr. Graham Dutton, City of Monroe. I just wanted to start by saying happy Pride Month and that I'm excited to partake in some of the events that are put on by members of that community. And also that comment from that individual today. As a medical practitioner, I can confirm that there is peer-reviewed research that squashes anything that he says that is falsified. And those comments were just disgusting. Secondly, I'd like to wish everyone a happy Juneteenth. I'm also looking forward to all the educational programs that are going on by that community and wanted to thank them as well for taking the time to do that. And finally, just wanted to reiterate, I know someone told you, but the United Tribes of Michigan is now signed on to the Custer Relocation Project. And I know that one councilman asked before, what do Indigenous people think of this? That is about as concrete a response as you can possibly get, that they're against that and that they want the removal. And so they've taken the time to write in, they're taking the time to call, and they'll continue to educate you guys. So I hope you're paying attention to those. I hope you're listening to everything, because they're taking time out of their schedule to deliver extremely compelling arguments for why the statue should be removed. Those arguments certainly outweigh anything that any of you have ever said publicly about keeping it. That's for sure. And so these tribes will continue to educate you that that statue stands for a legacy of rape, torture, murder, and theft, and genocide. And no matter who you choose, no matter which consultant, in the end, what they say, the United Tribes of Michigan will be watching that process to make sure it goes through properly. You, in the end, will have the decision whether or not to defend his legacy. So I ask you tonight, what will your legacies be? Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, clerk. I don't see any other hands raised for this evening.
I do not. Let me just look here really quickly.
Nope.
No, I do not see any.
Okay, with that, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion by Councilman Moore, supported by Councilman Ecolangeli to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
Yes.
Whitman,
Yes.
Ecolangeli,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Lamore,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you for your comments and work throughout the evening.